let's just start with Ad Age. You guys are, I don't know who else is here, but you're killing it. And you have a great staff that just is really, on top of things. So what has really performed well for you? What's working for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to just start through the lens of what we're looking at. Our goal is to help the industry do their jobs better. So everything that we're doing, whether it is the journalism that we're doing, the events that we're standing up, any multimedia products, our social channels, everything is through the lens of how can we help people do their jobs better. So through that lens and thinking about what's really resonating with our audience right now, Gen Z marketing. Our audience cannot get enough of how brands, agencies can better reach, connect with the Gen Z consumer. We have our Next Gen Marketing Conference in March, which is a big blowout of our Gen Z marketing event that we started in March of this year. It'll be in March of next year, 3 days, focusing on Gen Z marketing, the creator economy, and D2C marketing. So that's a really, really big avenue for us and one that we're really leaning into. And as you think about that audience, we're also really thinking about how can we grow the content that we're producing around those who are either just breaking into the industry or looking to level up their career. So around education content, things about how people can do their jobs better. That is an area of growth for us. AI, as we were just hearing about, is definitely one. AI marketing, what's working, what is not. Definitely area of growth for us as well. Lots of others, agency culture, how agencies are working and the future of the agency model is another area that's big for us as well.
Awesome. And Sabrina, how about you for creativity?
Creativity is also massive for us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, creativity is actually changing quite a bit. So, I think most of you are familiar with the creativity part of the Ad Age site where we cover, the creative work and we have standalone pieces. But I think beyond that, we're trying to expand our coverage into other avenues because there's a lot of you. And not so much of us. And so we want to, give that spotlight to more of the work. So we're doing the daily creativity roundups now, which is a good way to get, some of that work in there that maybe doesn't get as much love or we just don't have the bandwidth to get to. We're also doing the Creativity Weekly newsletter, which is different from the Creativity Daily newsletter. This is a weekly narrative newsletter where we do a little bit more in-depth. We do, some deep dives into what topics are buzzing, what people are talking about, some trending stories, things like that. And so, creativity is really growing. I think we're trying to expand into more avenues of coverage so that you do get that love for your clients and, get a little bit more of the work represented.
Let's say our love for our creatives. So speaking of that, the creativity newsletter, just housekeeping wise, it's brand new. It's once a week, right? Do we have to sign up for it separately from?
Yes, you do. You
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Sign up with your email.
Now.
Yes, sign up with your email. It's right on that page where you can see all the other newsletters. So maybe click a few more while you're there.
That's awesome. So can you guys describe your typical day? I'm just thinking, do you have an editorial meeting first thing in the morning? Do you assign stories? Do you what's the kind of cadence? I know it's not.
Yeah,
always
no, I can definitely give some overview of that. The editors meet in the morning to sort of plan out the day. Reporters are talking with their editors about what stories they're working on. I will say that one thing that's been strong in our strategy is really thinking ahead. So a lot of the bigger feature pieces, more in-depth stories that you're seeing, we're planning much further in advance, which has been helpful for us, helpful in terms of our reporting and context, giving people enough time. I think during COVID, we got into this constantly moving place, and we needed to stop and take a breath and figure out a new strategy for what works now. So a lot of planning is happening weeks to even months in advance. We have our calendar out if you want to go on the site and take a look of what events and other things are happening next year. So we're just doing a lot more forward planning very far in advance than maybe we were, let's say, a year or two ago.
That's good for us, for those who like to look in an editorial
I'm
calendar.
a planner, so that's where that comes from.
Okay, awesome. And can we talk a little bit about DE&I, because it's a hot topic, obviously, with all different types of companies in our industry. So I know that there's certain things like with your Super Bowl ad coverage.
Yep.
You ask a question, what role did DE&I play in the
Yes.
making of the Super Bowl ad? You have to always remember that one. And so how do you kind of weave it in every day throughout your coverage?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. One, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but we actually have a external DE&I council that we've had now for 4 years, where we have a lot of industry folks on it, where we meet monthly and we are talking about things like who we should be bringing into the Ad Age fold. That means that it's not only stories about DE&I, but just making sure the people that we're interviewing are representative of the industry, and the stories that we're telling are inclusive and representative. I think sometimes, we think about DE&I only from this agency is doing this thing or putting out this, versus like everything we do needs to be representative. So we do have a council that has been with us for 4 years, and it's been amazing. And they've guided that in terms of our events, making sure our panels are representative, making sure the content that we're putting on the stage is representative. So that's how we're really weaving it in every day. We're still doing stories around, last week, Lindsay Rittenhouse did a chief diversity officer story. Maybe that was this week. I don't know. The days are all blending. But those are things that we are doing and will maintain and continue to do, but we are thinking about it and weaving it in everything we do.
That's great.
And from the creative, you're thinking about
I've
that as
noticed
well.
that with creativity,
Yeah.
you definitely like to focus on those stories, right?
It's super top of mind. I mean, I think, as a reporter, it is my responsibility to also ensure that I'm being fair in the coverage. And so we try to tell those stories, even if it's the little guy, the smaller work, the smaller agency that may have a diverse angle that tells an interesting story. So I try to give some love to those as well. It can't just be all about the big brands. So, I keep that top of mind when I'm doing the reporting for creativity. Tim and I also have active conversations about when we're doing outreach, right? For predictions pieces, trend pieces, et cetera, how we can include diverse voices, at the CCO level, at the CMO level, at all these different levels in the organization to ensure that we have different voices in there as well. And so, I think there is a lot of conversation where we are keeping this top of mind and trying to ensure that also when you guys come to us and you pitch someone forward, we will go back to you and say, hey, can we diversify this list a little bit? So, we are being active about that.
Yeah, do not be surprised. Anna Sakula on my team, who many of you know, she will likely come back to you during events time and ask for maybe different faces and names that we don't normally, people aren't putting forth. And that's really important to us. We don't want the same people all the time. We want to make sure we are being inclusive.
Okay, we have to remember to tell our execs that.
Yes.
And that's another thing. I feel like the age of the I'm not even trying to be funny. The age of the star CMO, you guys kept going to Fernando Machado every day, right? I mean, not just you, but so I feel like there needs to be sort of a new class of those brand marketers. And how are you finding them?
Yeah, we actually have coming up, submissions should open actually this week, around a Gen Z, the future Gen Zers to watch for 2025. So those are folks within your companies, within clients' companies that are standing out and making a name for themselves. We are using that as one vehicle. Our 40 under 40 honorific is another one that we often turn to. A lot of our honorifics, we actually then do go back to the folks who are named to bring them into the Ad Age fold. So we just started a Leading Women Network community this year in September with this year's class, and that's something we'll be opening up to a broader group of folks next year. But that is the way we're sort of making sure we have different voices, is by tapping the communities that we're building every day.
That's great. That's great. And as far as events go, so I know that was one thing I wanted to ask you. So I know you've got the next gen, right? So you've done different verticals like food and beverage and things like that. Do you have any verticals coming up too, or anything
So
interesting?
there's not a ton of like vertical specific. What we're doing for next year, our big tent poles are the next gen marketing, our business of brands event in Chicago, which we'll have the second half of next year. Of course, small agency in the summer. Always a favorite. Those are really our big temples. We've definitely like narrowed down the field to think bigger and broader while staying still in the categories that are close to us versus going to like the food and bev, health and wellness and things like that.
All right, awesome. So do we want to go through questions? Or wait, is it key takeaways first, then questions? Thanks. I didn't pay attention to any of the meetings. Okay. Do you remember what your key takeaway is? Okay. So
yeah, I like that one. Right. So yes, I feel like oftentimes we get a lot of folks calling us and being like, why didn't you write about this announcement? I think we are just in general, announcements for us, we are very selective about. Like we are talking about big news here. We are much more thinking about like strategies, big picture, how is this impacting the industry moving forward? A lot of what you'll see in Ad Age now are big picture coverage based upon news, right? And looking at news that brands and agencies have released over past couple of months and things like that, and just thinking bigger about like what does this mean for the industry versus like a one-off campaign, one-off, change in leadership, unless of course it's massive.
Right.
But that's really been like the change. So thinking beyond like the announcements and more of like, what does this mean for the industry is what's really important for us.
that's a good question to ask for every press release, right?
Yes.
And then,
That's
this is a good,
That's just my subscribing message
yes,
for everyone.
very important.
We not only like need to work with you all in the coverage, but our ability to do this depends on folks subscribing. I think we do have an offer that I sent around.
Yes, we have a
for
special
everyone.
offer.
So I'm sure you'll get that, but we do have a special offer too for a subscription that
Right.
we brought with us.
So we can't all share passwords.
Do not share passwords, please. I'm really this is my big beg.
I
Thank you.
say if we want to be supported by the ad trades, we have to help pay for the ad trades. So,
True.
yeah. Okay, so Sabrina.
Yeah, so this one is, understand what you're pitching for. I know that sounds obvious, but for creativity, it is changing, like I said, right? There are several content verticals, and unfortunately, we just can't get to every single campaign, so it's not always gonna be a one-off story. Think about where your pitch fits best. Is it a smaller brand? Is it sort of a smaller activation? Maybe we can put it in the creativity roundup. Or is this a strategy piece? Is there an interesting behind-the-scenes story, and is this a feature? So I think that really helps for us also kind of just narrow down the things that we're going to choose to cover. Some of them are a one-off campaign story, but not all of them are. So I think it's really important to kind of put that in your pitch, in your angle, and let us know, we think that this could work for this. What are the interviews that we can offer, et cetera.
Awesome. Great. With 32 seconds to spare, making it time. Q&A, please.
Okay. So one question, or this is not a cue, it's just kudos to Sabrina, excellent leadership on telling the creativity story.
Yes. Yes.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I don't think this is on. Kira, my mic. Okay, I'll just talk really loud. How do you select speakers for the small agency conference? The general speaker email address has been something. I didn't read the whole question before I read the question. The general speaker email address has been something of a black hole.
Yeah, look, a lot of what we're doing is we're thinking about the panels and the sessions that are resonating with our audience. And a lot goes back to like the content that we see every day doing well with our audience. And we use that as the framework for the sessions that we're going to plan. And then what might fit into those sessions. So a lot of it is, our good friend Judy Pollack doing a ton of outreach and her agency team. And most of it is born out of what we know is resonating with our audience based upon stories that we've written.
All right, one more question. What makes a pitch irresistible to you?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
really good.
One, being given access. So just writing off of a press release is not something that we do. We want access to the people that are making the creative, the ones that are behind the strategy, being brought into that and understanding that, and being able to like actually have a live conversation with folks. That is probably one of the most important things. And then I said, like, really framing it around like why this is important to the company, the brand, the industry right now, and sort of thinking about it in that like frame of mind.
Yeah, can I take that one too? I like that question. I think for creativity, right, access is definitely one of them, but I would also say there has to be a strong idea and craft, right? If both of those things are there, then it's an irresistible creativity story. Less so if it's one or the other, although that doesn't mean it can't be covered, but I think for us, it's definitely a story that we want to take if we have the access to talk to the creatives, to talk to the talent, to talk to the production. But then it's also a very strong idea, and it also is well crafted.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sabrina and Jeanine.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.